So I want to just begin a little bit telling you about myself, which is that I didn't dream to become a scholar on anti-Semitism, nor did it's not something I wanted. But I was an undergraduate student in the year 2001, 2002 at UC Santa Cruz in California. And I saw what was very alarming. I saw demonstrations. Now, at that time, it wasn't Students for Justice in Palestine, it was the MSA, Muslim Student Alliance. They were demonstrating a fake checkpoint. They were showing what apartheid in Israel looked like. They called Jews who would walk by Zionist pigs. They invited a speaker who, I mean, I can't believe the university allowed it. But why I'm sharing this with you is I saw it. I saw it and I understood 100% what it was. And I saw the warning signs. So I went to university administrators. They didn't understand. But actually it was the Jewish institutions and professors who told me not to worry about it. They told me to keep quiet, to actually, if I make a big deal about it, it's going to get worse. And they told me that anti-Zionism is just criticism of Israel. And I have to say that, and I don't mean it in a pejorative sense, I mean it in just a friendly kind of remark, that American Jewry was completely unprepared for anti-Zionism. And the only reason I was prepared is because my parents come from the Soviet Union. The other issue is that as I started to pursue my own PhD, I realized my passion really is education, teaching, curriculum development. And I was teaching a course on Russian Jewish history. And I remember I said Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I said this, blood libel. And the students didn't understand what I was saying. And I thought, well, that's strange. These are Jewish students. And I predominantly work with Jewish students. How are they not literate in their own history? And yes, that means the history of anti-Semitism. And I thought, well, if you do not know the history, you cannot combat it. You cannot effectively confront it. So that's when I actually came to ISGAP as what you are doing today. I came here as somebody to learn how to make a class. And so I wear several hats, right? I'm wearing a hat as an educator, I'm wearing a hat as a scholar, and I'm wearing a hat as an activist. And today, I'm predominantly, hopefully, going to stick to the educator hat, and I really want to welcome you as future educators. And education is not just in the classroom. Education is journalism, right? What you do. Education is, some of you work in policy, right? So education doesn't just have to be in the classroom. So what's going to happen in this presentation is I'm going to actually have a dialogue with you, and I do want you to speak with me. I do welcome the pushback. In fact, if there's pushback, that would be great. My job as an educator is two things: to clarify the complex and to make you uncomfortable. So those are my two things. So it is geared towards offering a new model for teaching on anti-Semitism. And part of this talk is I'm going to actually model for you what I do when I speak with students, how I teach it. It's very important to have trust in the classroom. And one of the ways that I create this trust is I believe in transparency. And so I'm being very transparent. These are my objectives today. I hope I will keep to them. I want to briefly go over traditional methods of teaching when it comes to anti-Semitism. I want to present to you a new approach, and I dare to say I want to eschew definitions of anti-Semitism. I don't think that they're helping people understand anti-Semitism. I don't think IRA, 3D, JDA, or we learned today about the Nexus definition. Perhaps that's not the most productive way of teaching about anti-Semitism, and discuss the benefits of this new approach. So, and please do stop me if you have any questions. So, as I understand it, in terms of how people approach the teaching of anti-Semitism, it's a relatively new field in itself. There is no, if you go to Jewish studies departments, there really isn't a class on the history of anti-Semitism. There's a class on the Holocaust, of course, and we've spoken about this at length, which is that what people believe is, there's no, anti-Semitism died with the rest of the Jews kind of, and the Holocaust was put to rest. And I'll never forget this because I went to a Jewish day school, and high school, and I said, can I pilot this course on the history of anti-Semitism? And the dean of the school said, there's no need for your class because we have a robust Holocaust program. So, right, that's an issue. So the other thing that I'm going to talk about is what I think is incorrect, which is conflating racism with anti-Semitism. And I think that has been not to our benefit to do that. And the second is looking at the way Jewish legacy institutions, so nonprofits, with their campaigns such as No Place for Hate, Fighting Intolerance. ADL talks about the pyramid of hate. Ever since Jews were basically kicked out of Judea, I believe that there's been a tension between particularism and universalism in the diasporic Jewish experience. There are those Jews like myself who tend to gravitate towards particularism, and there are Jews who want to be universalists, who want to appeal to everyone. And as such, we have campaigns, No Place for Hate, Fighting Intolerance, Pyramid of Hate. And I've attended some of these seminars, and they're not terrible, they're just not about anti-Semitism, okay? And that's what we're gonna talk about. And then the other thing is, definitions, are they helpful? And why can't we agree on a definition? So, just moving forward, just to give you this is from 2019, the UJA, which is the conglomerate kind of Jewish federations of all of North America, allocated $15 million that year to combat anti-Semitism, mostly online. People are obsessed right now with combating anti-Semitism online because the next generation, they really live virtually. And so online is a reality. How effective they have been is a different story, but I want to show you a case study, okay, that I'm going to share with you. There's a Jewish day school, very predominant Jewish day school next to my house in California, in Los Angeles, and I was there for a reason, and I saw there was a huge board, and it said, Remembering Kristallnacht. And I asked, I think it was the secretary or one of the teachers, what is this? And she said, oh, this year, in honor of Kristallnacht, we did this project in school called Remembering Kristallnacht. So I decided to approach this project. And what it was students were given, what do you call these, name tags, kind of? Mm-hmm. Sticky, yeah? And they were asked, what will they not be silent about in light of Kristallnacht? I will not be silent in the face of gun violence. I will not be silent in the face of sexism. I will not be silent in the face of rape culture, environmental degradation, homophobia, any hate. Let me ask you a question. What do you think? What do you think when you see this?
Anti-Semitism.
How so?
Well, you can say any hate. You don't have anything specific up there about it. I mean, there's no,
Well, there are specific things. Rape culture is specific.
Nothing specific about the Holocaust or anti-Semitism.
Right. What led to Kristallnacht was not rape culture. It was anti-Semitism. Right. And it just kind of jolted me.
But the question is, do they know what Kristallnacht means?
And that's a different question. Exactly. That's
90% of Israelis would not know what Kristallnacht means.
Wow.
90% of school children would not know. So the question is, if we can start to be judgmental what they say, you assume a certain knowledge. They don't know, we do surveys about how much they know about our founding fathers, what they know about the Holocaust. They don't know. They know about, Madonna, they used to know last year. Now they will know about whatever it is. They just don't have any.
So you're absolutely right. And
to assume that they know, to assume they will know, I think it's a mistake. We should not assume. They know nothing.
But that is exactly what. But that's to your point. Exactly what I thought. What happened pedagogically in the classroom to yield these responses? That's what's interesting to me. What happened in that classroom? What was taught about Kristallnacht, to your point? Probably not much. Right. That gives us That's the problem.
Regular student, you're talking about Jewish students?
I'm talking about Jewish. So I work mostly with Jewish students. We found this out yesterday with the young scholars in college who, it's just amazing. They came here to study about anti-Semitism, most of them who are not Jewish, and I work mostly with Jews. So it's just like amazing, really amazing to see them. So this is an issue, once again, this tendency to universalize even the Holocaust, all right? And as you know, I said that I went to ISGAP in 2018, and I was in this very seminar that you are in, and afterwards I decided to create a syllabus, and this was my syllabus, The Anatomy of Anti-Semitism from Ancient to Modern. I was like, yeah, I got it. I'm gonna go now conquer the world. I'm gonna go teach everyone about anti-Semitism. It was an uphill battle, but I was able to get, and this is an interesting story, I was able to get the class into a modern Orthodox Jewish high school in Los Angeles. And I taught it using the traditional method, meaning I did a chronological. I started, okay, when do we begin with anti-Semitism? How do we define anti-Semitism? I introduced them to the IRA definition. I introduced them to the 3D test. Do you all know about the 3D? So Natan Sharansky, he developed this idea of the 3D test. And when I met Natan Sharansky, we asked him, how did you develop this idea? He said he was going to the movies with his grandchildren, and it was a 3D film. And he didn't wear the glasses. And so, have you ever been in a film? Yes. And he just couldn't understand anything. And his grandkids gave him the glasses, and it was focused. And so he developed this idea that you can tell if something is anti-Semitic if it demonizes, applies double standards, and dehumanizes.
Double discourse.
Double standards is what I said. So if those three check off, it's anti-Semitism, which was very helpful, in many ways shaped IRA and contributed to the IRA definition. So here I am, equipped with the syllabus. So I asked the students, and these are Jewish students, I said, is this anti-Semitism? What do you think they said?
Yes.
I don't know what to say.
They said no. I said, what? They said it's clearly criticism of the IDF. While extreme, it's criticism of Israel. It's criticism of policies of the IDF policies. Why? Because the man has an IDF garb on, and who is he killing? A Palestinian child. And then I asked them, is this anti-Semitism? Do you think this is anti-Semitism?
I believe so.
Would you be able to explain it, though? So I'm going to help. That's what I do. I help people connect the dots and explain it. Right? Why is this anti-Semitic? They also said no. They said to me, they said, this is a flag of a country. It's political in nature. It's a political statement. Political cartoons tend to be hyperbolic, Naya, they said to me. Right? So it's not. And I remember, and I'm not making this up, I called my mother on the phone in Russian, and I said, Mom, we failed. We failed the Jewish kids. They can't identify anti-Semitism. And I failed. I didn't do a good job that first time that I taught that class. I wasn't able to get them to see that this is anti-Semitism. But it was because of that forced me to think of a different way to teach. And that's what I want to now model for you, is what I do with students to help them of all ages, college students, adults. I work with synagogues, high school students, how to connect those dots. The question is, may I just ask you, when you see this, do you all see that this is anti-Semitic?
Paints the Jews as killers.
Okay. Okay, and would you be able to explain it, articulate it?
Bloodline.
Oh, okay, let's not, okay.
Well, could you just flesh it out for us?
Well, I'm gonna flesh it out. This is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna flesh it out. So I'm going to model right now this model lesson. Once again, I begin with my objectives. I want to be transparent. I'm going to talk to you today about language of anti-Semitism and how it evolves. I'm going to actually argue that Jew hatred is very unique and it's not universal and has a very unique what I call DNA code. And I want to practice together. So if I asked you, when did anti-Semitism begin? What would you say? Just don't raise your hands, please. How about from the young scholars over there?
I would say from as long as Jews have been around.
You would say from as long as Jews have been around.
No, please.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'd say the medieval period in Europe.
Okay, the medieval period in Europe. Yes.
That's exactly.
Very interesting. From Egypt. Okay.
Beginning of Christianity.
So with the birth of Christianity. And you'll get a final word.
My question would be, well, I would ask, what do you mean by anti-Semitism?
Oh, good. I like that.
Term and what that denotes, or like Jew?
Oh, that's excellent. So no, you're the first student who's ever asked me back. That's great. But as you can see, we got so many disparate responses, which kind of begs the question to your point. What is your name? Sorry? Megan? Yeah. You raise a great point, which is, well, how do you define this anti-Semitism? Right? What, othering? Is that what you're talking about? The first instance of othering another Jew? And I tell them, well, anti-Semitism is the longest hatred, right? I tell them that it is the longest hatred, not because I, as a Jew, want brownie points, like, yeah, I've been hated for the longest time, but because if we can understand it's a very complicated hatred, we can understand other forms of hatred for that reason only. So let's do an experiment. We're talking about language. What's this? A cup? A teacup. And what's that? A to-go cup. Great. And what's that?
A salt shaker.
Really? Wait, I was like, really? It's a glass. It's a glass. What do you call it? Bottle. A water bottle.
Salt shaker.
Okay, it is not a salt shaker. Okay. And what is this?
Fancy water bottle.
Okay, a flask. And what is this? And this? And we're back to cup. A mug. Yeah. So let me ask you now this question. Do they all serve the same function, would you say? No.
Yes and no.
So let's do it one at a time. Okay, so what is your name?
James.
James, talk to me.
I said they all serve the same function.
In what
because
sense?
They hold a liquid, or it could be some other substance as well.
So they hold a liquid. One does it better. So a cup holds coffee better than it does than a martini glass, but they're both holding liquid. But the words change. Now, we spoke about this shift today we spoke about the language, the changing of the language from Judenhass to anti-Semitism to anti-Zionism, the shift in language. This idea of creation of the term anti-Semitism in the 19th century. Why was it created? Why was there a need to create this League of Anti-Semites? We have a significant shift going on here from hatred of the Jew for his religious character to hatred of the Jew for their racial character. I'm not going to spend more time on that. And finally, we've moved from hatred of the Jew based on solely the racial character to hatred of the Jew for his ethnic character, for his nationality. And what's important, I believe, is that in each era, the Jew is a violator. The Jew violates something that civilization society deems to be morally pure. So, to your point, Nathan, yes? Nathan, right? To your point about medieval anti-Semitism, or somebody else said the birth of Christianity, you have this idea that the Jew, just by the fact that he is a Jew and remains that stiff-necked Jew, right, is a reminder that they didn't, quote unquote, get on the salvation train. The Jew didn't get on that salvation train. And so the Jew, his very essence is a violation of that which we deem to be our North Star. Society evolves, the North Star evolves. Now the North Star is a little different. We've got Darwinism. We've got race as a science. And so in that worldview, in that model, you have the Jew is a violator of race. I remember at UC Santa Cruz when they said to me from the podium, not to me only, I am not an anti-Semite. I will denounce all forms of anti-Semitism. I am an anti-Zionist. And I thought to myself, you think you're fooling? And they were fooling so many people, right? They say, oh, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm an anti-Zionist. Now, what are Zionists today? Seen as violators. What's the thing that we care most about today in the secular world? Human rights. This is our North Star. So guess what the Jew will be? A violator of that. I had a wonderful student one year, super smart. She's like, Naya, can you forecast what anti-Semitism would look like 200 years from now if we knew what the North Star of society would be? Like, let's say AI or something like that. I was like, wow, it's amazing. I said, no, I can't forecast anti-Semitism, unfortunately. But in this model, we see this shift of hatred of Jew once again from religious, racial, ethnic origin. And we see the Jew fulfilling that role of being something that violates a tenet that society deems to be important. Now, when I teach about anti-Semitism, I found that the IRA definition is not helpful. Because if you understand that anti-Semitism evolves, once you define something, you codify it. You kind of put a bracket on it and say, this is it. But you know that anti-Semitism will evolve. If you read the Rabbi Sachs piece, which I gave, which he's the one who came up with this idea of a mutating virus. So if we're talking about viruses, let's talk about viruses. What do we know? They attack the host body, they take over the host body, they can be slow acting, they can be fast acting, they cannot reproduce on their own, and this is what's important for us, they have a unique DNA, or now we know, we've become very learned in virology, RNA structure, and they evolve and mutate. So come with me on this journey of looking at anti-Semitism as a virus. How do we develop effective vaccines? How did they develop the COVID vaccine? Do you know? Every DNA has a unique code, like ABCD, DCEA. You know, it's called the nucleotide sequence. So that's why, for instance, like the flu, they predict to the best case, but they don't know 100%. So I thought to myself, Naya, if definitions don't work, maybe you can you conceptualize of anti-Semitism as this virus? What would its nucleotide sequence be? What would its DNA structure be? And this is this DNA structure of anti-Semitism. Blood libel, world domination, demonization, dual loyalty, dehumanization, and avarice or money greed. So it actually doesn't really matter what century I'm in. I'm in the 14th century, I'm in the 19th century, I'm in today. If I can identify it, I know it's anti-Semitism. Also, it's a great way to not have to bring politics in. It's not about the right or the left. It doesn't matter, right? It's not about that. So I want to take you through each accusation, which I call a nucleotide sequence. Blood libel. How many of you have heard of blood libel? Can somebody tell me about it and its origins? Somebody who I haven't heard from yet. Well, yes, sir. What is your name?
Aaron.
Aaron, please.
Yes, it was an early myth in Christianity that during Pascha, Passover, the Jewish people would kidnap Gentile Christian children and drain their blood in order to drink the Passover meal.
Okay. I just want to repeat that again because not everybody knows, so it's just important. Just to give you a little bit more detail, it comes from 12th century England with the death of this boy named William of Norwich. He really existed. It really is true. He was really crucified and his blood was drained. It's like forensic history. There's a whole book written about this case. It's actually fascinating because actually it was the monk who later came and decided to make him into a saint, canonized him, and it spread. That the Jews actually ensnared him. The Jews drained his blood. It happened right around Passover. And thus we have the birth of this early first accusation or nucleotide sequence, which is blood libel, this idea that Jews are after blood. So with my students, I show them a collection of different images from different places of the world, different time periods. It doesn't matter, right? This is, you should know of the work of Itamar Marcus from Palestinian Media Watch, PMW. Very important because he basically exposes that to the West, the Arabs say one thing, the Palestinian Arabs, and to themselves they say something else. And so what PMW does is they do some important work, which is expose what is happening on the ground in Palestinian territories in terms of what are children reading, what kind of cartoons are they seeing. So here we are. Here is a Jewish Dracula with teeth, bloody teeth, and he's about to kill not just a boy. You see this, everyone, right? It's a Palestinian boy, and it's always a boy because of that. Because of William of Norwich, that typology became iconic. It's iconic almost, right? With blood libel, it's always a boy or children because of William of Norwich. I don't know if you guys remember the conflict between Hamas and Israel 2021. I don't remember. It probably had a name. I forget its name. It was a terrible, terrible conflict. But the New York Times published this. Sorry, you can't read it. In the front page, you recall. Yes, they were just children. And images of all these children that Israel killed. Now, nobody said blood libel in there. Nobody has a dagger with blood, but it's implicit, this idea of Jews and children, killing of the children.
And it turned out that it was false.
It was false. And some of these kids are actually Jewish kids in there, and they retracted. But the damage was already done, all right? And so when these kids told me this is not anti-Semitism, I said, you know what? Because I'm trained in literary criticism or literary scholarship, close reading. I said, I don't care about the who is who. I don't care about the what. I care about the trope. Let's take a look at that trope. Let's take a look at the way that it's being. What is the trope here? It's blood libel. And blood libel is unique only to Jews. And of course, the students are like, no. They started to Putin and blood. No, they couldn't find that. This is unique to the Jewish experience. And that is why, for instance, I don't believe that anti-Semitism is racism. You won't have that type of iconography in racist images. All right, the second one is world domination. Comes from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This idea that Jews want to dominate the world. Jews have all the money, Jews have all the power. We've seen this in various, again, I'm showing you not just American or Arabic, I'm showing you Russian even. This is from the Soviet Union, Arabskie strany, right? The Arab countries. And who is this general, the IDF general who's about to carve out the entire, or all the Arab countries. Notice he also has a blood at the end of his sword. Here we have, this is from a German newspaper from 2002. We have Israel dominating the Middle East, basically. That's Jordan, Lebanon, dominating all of that. We have, does anybody recall this cartoon that came out from the New York Times in 2000?
International Herald Tribune, which is an adjunct of the New York Times. I think it was in spring of 2020. I actually met with the publisher of the New York Times about
really?
Yeah, at the time. It was the one with Trump walking Bibi.
This is it.
Yeah, that's it. And it was, by the way, it led the New York Times to actually ban publishing any future cartoons in any of their associated newspapers.
Really? Wow, I did not know this. But I have to tell you that my students also didn't think this was anti-Semitic. They thought this was political criticism. Criticizing a relationship between Trump and Netanyahu. This is what they thought. But this is, for me, this is world domination and demonization, and I'll explain why. We understand world domination is because this dog, BB dog, this Jew dog, is leading a blind president. Who's controlling who? But the worst part about it, what do you think is the worst part about it, actually? The hat. He's hypnotized. He's got so much power, he's made the president into a Jew.
He's wearing the kippah.
Yeah. Yeah, the hat. Yeah. It's and then demonization. Demonization is, and again, this is why I don't believe that anti-Semitism and racism are similar. Demonization is the belief that Jews have these supernatural powers to quote unquote transform a president who's Christian, not Jewish, into a Jew, right? Ilhan Omar's tweets, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. If you're confused if this is anti-Semitism, you could just substitute Israel for Jew. The Jews have hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of the Jews. Right? This idea that the Jews have hypnotized the world. This is from the Soviet Union. Stalin has taken off his mask. Lo and behold, there's a Jew devil. Now, why did I include Israel as an apartheid state in a demonization slide? What a devil. Why did I do that? And by the way, you can disagree with me because this is just my attempt to help people explain. But okay, if you ask yourselves and people that you associate with, do you or your friends or your peers believe in devils and demons? They do?
No.
Yes, one moment. I just want to. They don't. Most people, I don't think, believe in Satan's walking around. This was common belief in 5th, 6th century medieval times. Not today. But if you ask an average person on the street, what is the most evil thing in the world? What is evil? What is evil?
Apartheid is evil.
Apartheid is evil. Racism is evil. White supremacy is evil. Nazism is evil. So that is what Israel is. It's the devil now. It's demonizing Israel. And lest you are fooled, when people say, Israel as apartheid state is a form of criticism, what do you do with an apartheid state?
You destroy it.
You have to destroy it. It cannot exist. So I want to stress that part. Dual loyalty. This is the French emancipation, the emancipation of Jewry, where Count Tonnerre famously said, "Give everything to the Jews as individuals, but give nothing to the Jews as a nation." What does that mean? I know it's not on I didn't put the quote, but what does that mean to you all? Imagine yourselves as Jews living in, it's 1878. Give everything to the Jews as individuals, but nothing to the Jews as a nation. Yes.
We're dangerous when we're able to collectivize and sort of be a society, but individually we're sort of powerless and theoretically at least, and therefore not really a threat, and they can sort of give us equal rights.
Okay, excellent. It's about threat, right? Right. But Count Tonnerre is not wrong. Are the Jews not a nation? Are we not a people? He's not wrong. But what it inserted in the Gentile brain, in the Gentile mind is, so there's these two Jews. There's the Jew who's loyal to the state, and then there's the Jew that's loyal to his own people, to the nation. And so this type of conception about Jews creates this really fertile ground for another accusation or nucleotide sequence to flourish, and that is dual loyalty. 2014, a Jewish student at UCLA, I don't know if you know this story, yeah. Jewish student at UCLA, just a Jewish girl, wanted to be in the Senate. So to be in the student Senate, you have to interview. And she was interviewed by a faculty member, including students. And they asked her, given that you are a Jewish student and are very active in the Jewish community, how do you see yourself being able to maintain an unbiased view, especially when it comes to Israel. Let me ask you if you, in your mind, substituted with any other minority, would that be okay? Given that you are a lesbian student and are very active in the LGBT community, how do you see yourself being able to maintain an unbiased view, especially when it comes to gender theory? Would that be okay? That's what they asked the Jewish student. An English high school student, a few years ago, she was the editor-in-chief of her newspaper. There was a shooting in Dallas, Texas, and she wanted to cover it in the student newspaper. And the faculty member told her, "You've been covering anti-Semitism too much. You are, in a position of power, you are basically, as a Jew, you're making this into a Jewish agenda. You're making this newspaper about Jewish agenda, driven by Jewish agenda." This is a cartoon from after the First World War, the Jew stabbing behind the German officer, German soldier. Dehumanization. Now, this is the one that, of course, shares the most with racism, the idea that one race is superior or subhuman. Again, I'm giving a plethora of examples, not just American. I'm giving you, Soviets gave plenty, and you'll hear more about that. They're good givers in that way. We have the Nazi Aryan woman. She's about to get bitten by a Jewish spider. He's dehumanized. He's a spider. This is a Zionist spider. It says Zionism, and all his web is he's pletiot. He's weaving the Jewish question, imperialism, all these things. He's weaving, right? PMW, Palestinian Media Watch. This is a rat, and I don't know if you see the Jewish star. Again, the gift that keeps on giving, the Soviet Union. Zionism is the weapon of, it says here in Russian, Zionism is the weapon of imperialism, and we've got a Jewish spider. Okay? But I don't believe that we are living in a time of dehumanization. I believe we are living in a different time. So we're almost through to the last one, and that's Jews and money. You know, we can trace its origins to the story that Judah sold Christ for 30 pieces of silver. We could trace the origins to the Jews being forced into money lending positions in England. But there is this strong connection between Jews and money. And even when we read Said's, no, it wasn't Said, it was after Said, Electronic Intifada, there were these undertones of Jews and money with their cushiony positions, or Jews as squires now, right? There's this constant connection between Jews and money. So what we have before us is the system of what I call, and I know it's not fancy, and I know it's not scientific and academic to say Jew hatred. I do call it Jew hatred, because every other term is almost of its own time. Judenhass belongs to one time. Antisemitism belongs to the 19th and 20th century. Anti-Zionism, 21st century, also 20th from the Soviet Union. But each one of them has a different, and it's interesting, in my opinion, in studying this, I thought, well, which ones are the most prominent? So during the era of Judeophobia, blood libel and demonization were the most prominent of these 6 accusations. During the era of anti-Semitism, it was dual loyalty, dehumanization, and world domination. And today, during the era of anti-Zionism, it's crazy to think this, but blood libel is back. It's very strong. Demonization and power. Yes, it's world domination, but it's got a kind of little mutation into power. I'm going to address that in a minute. So, and this is a little bit of the progressive, I'm going to bring in this progressive framework a little bit. On the far right, what you'll hear is the Jews control the world. On the far left, Jews have privilege and power and are colonizers. They're basically saying the same thing, but with different language, different words, because their language is informed by a certain criticism, right? We just heard about power and privilege and colonialism, really from Foucault, from here, you'll see, right? The focal point of power. When you look at all these studies and you refract it through the lens of power, now you no longer have history, you have narrative. we don't talk about the social contract, we talk about grassroots initiatives. There's no morality, it's all relative. There's no truth, truth is personal, and justice has to be engineered. It's social justice. Because through that lens of power, these fields study, and so of course they produce this type of language when it comes to accusing Jews of having privilege, settler colonialists, power on the far left and on the far right, dominating the world. The slight mutation also happened to demonization. Now it's apartheid, racism, and Nazism, because that is the evil of this century. Oh yes, I forgot, and you had a question, Daniel.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Nathan's question.
Yes.
In addition to the blood libel, I see a need to flesh out, let's say, this dual loyalty accusation. I hold an Israeli passport and American passport. It really sets it up for that accusation to be made. And so what's the answer there? What's the answer to, yes, the IDF accidentally, I think is going to be part of the explanation. Well, there will be victims, Palestinian children victims. How do we tease out accidental military actions? How do we go about explaining and addressing those accusations in a more nuanced and detailed way? And do you do that as part of the...
Absolutely, of course. But I want to tell you, Jabotinsky said, we are no different than any other people. We have criminals just like you have criminals. We have, killers just like you have killers. What I'm not just going to push back on you a little in respect. Not already push back, but this is what I would offer to say to someone. I'm sorry. If somebody has a Canadian passport and a US passport, why does that not breed a dual loyalty? Why is it only for Jews? No, but it doesn't.
America defined dual loyalty during the 1916, it was a very, during the Wilsonian period. I didn't have to do anything with the Jews. It defined dual loyalty with the Germans. It in turn, all the Japanese in camps. It seen the Arab Act as dual loyalty. It has seen many people as dual loyalty while holding other passport. Mexico considered the Pochos, its own people, as disloyal and traitors. There is a big question you are asking is about the Jew as a symbol of dual loyalty in the world, which goes much back.
Right.
The question is how much it stands out today, the question of dual loyalty. When Trump spoke about the Jewish disloyalty, which is quite interesting.
Yes, he did.
He said that disloyalty today is if you're disloyal to Israel.
Yes.
So he kind of like turned the corner and said, those Jews who are not loyal to Israel are not loyal to America, as opposed to others who have said that those Jews who are loyal to Israel are disloyal to America.
That's
Right.
part of his anti-Semitism.
I don't think it.
I don't think so. Okay.
The assumption that American Jews would follow him simply because he was good to Israel, as opposed to
dual loyal.
But Israelis also think so. Israelis called Kissinger a Jew boy. We define those who are not supporting us as dual loyalty or traitors. The question is, I'm not challenging all of this discussion. The question is, what do we get out of it? Because we can go on for ages about what was done to our nation, what was done to our people, and the dangers that exist. The question is in education. We are calling those Israelis who are leaving the country nowadays, Yordim, people who have deserted, disloyal. We're calling others, in Israel, when the Haredim do not serve, we have caricatures in the papers that basically defined by the Haredim as anti-Semitic. Last year there was a guy here, it was last year, the guy from Ariel College, remember that? Accusing the party, Israel Beitenu, my party, as an anti-Semitic party, showing all kind of cartoons, just like you showing. I don't know if you've been here last year. I think it was at Cambridge, at Cambridge. And he showed cartoons and he was livid. I said, what are you doing? He said, this is an anti-Semitic party. I belong to an anti-Semitic party. I'm not saying, everybody can say whatever they want. As my teacher once said, everybody's entitled to his opinion, but not to the facts. But the question is, what do we want to get out of it as educational? That's, I think, your point.
Yeah, so if we...
Let's let Naya finish. Let's let her finish
Yeah.
the presentation.
So I don't disagree with you, actually, but what I found is that when I show or demonstrate these 6 accusations or the DNA sequence, it helps people understand anti-Semitism that they didn't understand before, especially when it comes to this idea of power and colonialization, right? When you have decolonizing Israel, liberating Palestine, people are like, why is that anti-Semitic? Why? Nobody's calling death to Jews there. Why is this? How many of you have seen the shrinking map of Palestine?
And it's in high school you're doing it?
I worked in high school and college.
In college.
Okay, so these students come to class and this is what they see. They see a map, these Jewish students, and they're being told that the Jewish white European transplants have basically taken over Palestine, and like a cancer it grows, right? The Jewish presence. That the Jews are the original sin here being that they stole the land and they ethnically cleansed the Palestinians. Our job is to figure out, why is that anti-Semitic? How do we explain that? That's what I'd like to do. So this is clear to us, right? Again, I think when it comes from the right, we're much more trained to see it, right? So this idea of, a hierarchy, and of course, who controls at the very top? It's the Jew. This in London, this was years ago. There was a whole
Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, Corbyn drama,
mural,
a mural, right? These rich bankers conspiring. You see the eye behind this conspiratorial thinking on the backs of people of color. Now, these bankers also happen to be drawn in very Jewishy ways.
Well, one of them was supposedly one of the early Rothschild bankers.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the guy.
This one?
Second from the right, or third from the right, is supposed to be one of the Rothschilds.
Right. So I just want to say, look, when we see this, and my students have seen this, their teachers bring this to class, okay? The spilled blood of this child. It's blood libel. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed, the blood is what is it? Is shape of? Israel. Right? The Jews are the new Nazis. That's that demonization, right? You'll hear about this again, Mother Russia, thank you so much. Demonization, we got it from there. Yes, I apologize.
Can you go back to the previous slide? You see the one that you're showing, and I saw that actually.
This one?
Times. Yeah, the one up there. Right.
Yes.
Why not creating something similar?
They have tried.
No, you create another map like that showing Israel historically. Like that.
They've tried. I can show you. I have those maps. Yeah, we've tried. The Jewish world has tried.
What's the diffusion of?
This is why, Professor Yossi, I don't know if I necessarily disagree with you entirely. No. But you don't know. Wait. But my point is, I actually think that anti-Semitism in the diaspora should be Israel's concern. It is a big deal. It is a huge problem. Yes, we are not threatened existentially. We do not have Iran telling us that he's going to wipe. But we are in a narrative war. We are in a battle of our identity. It's an assault on our identity.
Absolutely.
Right? Like Charles said, this is what is anti-Zionism? It's attack on the Jewish nation, peoplehood. This is where we come from.
Yes.
You want to say something?
Yeah, just quickly, when perceptions are so normative, like you said, we could find another map, thousands of maps. It doesn't matter a certain one. So when there are normative perceptions, so when you show that next slide, you're like, yeah, right? I mean, how do you change that?
Right. So when you see that, there you go.
No, but how do you flip it from somebody looking at it and saying, oh, that's just, political discourse? I mean, so I'll give you an example. David, you want to say something? Yeah.
Pedagogically, okay? You're showing people what some of the trends are and what some of the DNA sequence are in anti-Semitism. And then you're showing them possible examples But is there space intellectually to allow a student to say, I'm sorry, I just don't think that that's anti-Semitism in the end? And, I think, first of all, there's so much even on the right with George Soros and whether or not that's a trope. And I think sometimes when you criticize Soros, it's not anti-Semitism. Sometimes when you show him as a puppeteer, it is anti-Semitism. And I worry sometimes that we need them to sort of declare that this is anti-Semitism once and for all. They're trends. I'm equipping you with a lens to understand them as possible trends. But in the end, it's for you to decide whether or not.
I agree with you. Nobody. It's not prescriptive here, but it's supposed to be informative, a helpful lens.
Right.
A great thing I do with students is I show them these tweets. Okay, and I say to these students, guys, is this anti-Semitism? Guys, is this, ladies and gents, is this anti-Semitism? Yeah, right? Well, none of them actually say any of that. They say Israel Zionist. So we change the language. And finally, to your point, you wanted to take a picture. I've been in your position sitting there trying to take pictures. Well, also you got 5 minutes. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay? What do you guys think about this? To your point, David, let's not run around and say anti-Semitism if we can't articulate it. What is this? Okay, so just for the sake of our time, because I only have 5 minutes left, I'm just going to tell you, okay? This is a real story that happened in Los Angeles on a huge mural in downtown LA. I'm in this WhatsApp group, Jews Fight Back. They take a picture and they're like, this is terrible. What's going on? It's this huge mural. It's anti-Semitic. It's horrible. Yeah, it's terrible. So I said, I'm going to look up the address. I look up the address and I call the building. And I speak with a very nice gentleman, not Jewish, and I say, are you aware that your building has a mural that's very problematic and anti-Semitic? Because, I've been getting calls all day, but I don't understand what's the problem. It's artistic freedom. I don't quite understand. And that's important. I said, okay, do you mind if I write you an email? He goes, no, not at all. So I write him an email. And in the email I say, the Jewish people have been subject to anti-Semitism. There are certain parts of anti-Semitism that are very dangerous. Blood libel, okay? Right there, the child. Demonization, right there, the Grim Reaper. Dual loyalty, who's controlling America really? Do you see the Jewish stars? And I lay out these accusations. And this is for my students. Don't run around saying anti-Semitism if you cannot articulate, if you're not well-versed in the history. It's a crazy story. I could tell you guys later how this ended up. Okay. So people were like, let's go in the middle of the night, let's cover it. And a lot of people in the WhatsApp group said that it's actually a private property. This would be vandalism. It's incorrect. The Russians in Los Angeles decided to go and they just painted over it because the Russians don't care about, laws and stuff like that. So, but the point is, well, that's an interesting question. Like, and I ask this to students: is it okay to do that because you committed a crime? It is vandalism, right? Is it more like But the point is, the story is that this was made by a Mexican artist, a graffiti artist, a street artist, who went to Gaza in 2018 and met with Hamas. And what I didn't show you purposefully is that on the bottom, I cut it off, is the Twin Towers. And this is 9/11 reimagined. It would have been too easy if the Twin Towers were there, right? That it was a Jewish inside job. So returning back to this, I think that if we educate Jewish, and I'm talking about my Jewish students, on the history of these tropes, they will see it. They will see that this is blood libel. And once again, why I do not prescribe to definitions is because once you define something, you put a border around it. And as we know, it's an evolving hatred. So what will it look like? I will never forget, a couple months ago, I was on a Zoom and somebody asked me, do you think that chanting the Black Hebrew Israelites saying we are the real Jews, is that anti-Semitic? And somebody said, well, I don't know, let's look at the IRA definition. Is it in the IRA definition? And I'm thinking, my God, it's paralysis, right? So if the IRA definition is in many ways paralyzed us. So that's, again, and so my final takeaway, this is a call for educators, is I want to introduce you to something called the backward design method, which is that what is your objective? What do you want to get for your students? And not just your students, your readers, right? What do you want your students, your readers, your policymakers, what do you want them to get out of it? Because it's a fine art. It is seduction teaching. It is kind of, right? We do weave together very, very carefully. And so the goal is that when a student sees this kind of imagery or rhetoric, they can say, they won't have what I had in 2002, which is I was alone, all alone. I started with that story. I was all alone on campus. Do you guys know who Tammy Rossman Benjamin is, the founder of AMCHA? She was my mentor at UC Santa Cruz, and she helped me found a student group. And she saw it too. So, the point is, we need to get young people to see this as anti-Semitism. Okay, I'm done.